Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to talk about the beginning of next year because what I've noticed, I've been doing this for 2 years now, a little bit over 2 years, and I've been trying to keep track of different significant events that have taken place. And starting in 2022, I was thinking, because 2020 and 2021 were very eventful years. A lot of things happened in those years. And I was thinking, what's going to happen this year? What's like the first big thing that's going to happen this year? And then something happened. And I'm going to share that in a minute. And then, went through the same exercise for 2023. What's the first big thing that's going to happen this year? And then it happened, and we're looking at it right here. And when I say big, I mean something along the lines of a sign, not necessarily that they're comparable events. They're different things, but they all seem to have big implications. And they all happen at the beginning of these years. And what I've noticed is that 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 all had big things that happened at the beginning of those years. And, we're going into a new year, and I have the same question on my mind. And the last few years have not disappointed, not to say that I rejoice in like the suffering and damage and destruction that these different events have caused. But, there is hope as we look at the signs of the times, because it means that the second coming is sooner than later. We're getting closer and closer the more that we see signs. So I want to do a quick review and just, maybe you've already put this together yourself, maybe not. But I think that when you do put it together like this, it's kind of mind-blowing. If you were like someone from the past, if I was like if I was like transmitting this video to the past, say the year 1980, and these were the only 4 things that someone in 1980 would know about these 4 years, it'd probably be kind of stunning. They'd probably look to the future and be like, wow, you guys must be close to the second coming if stuff like that is happening. So before we get into it, I have updated the Flood the Earth Challenge tracker. And there was a significant uptick in copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared and people that have joined. I guess people are just feeling in the spirit of Christmas right now. So we've gone up 29 new copies of the Book of Mormon, which brings us to 7,493 total during the course of this challenge. So we're just a few away from 7,500, which is the next mile mark, or the next milestone in this. And we'll be 75% of the way there to the goal of 10,000. And then 6 new people have joined the challenge, which brings us to 811 total. So just steady progress. And then sometimes, we get bumps like this. Sometimes it kind of slows down, but on average, it's just nice, steady progress, and who knows how far it's going to go. Okay, so what was the first big thing that happened in 2020? Well, it was this. It was the COVID-19 pandemic. It actually started a couple months before. In fact, I wasn't thinking of doing this. This is usually the case. But if we go to my spreadsheet called Timeline Second Coming, we go down to the year 2020, or actually the end of 2019. The date that I have, that the very first article that I've been able to find that says when this started was the 12th of December, 2019. And if you want to look it up, the article's over here in column R. Okay. This is from Fox 17 Online. There's probably other ones too, but I just used that one. So not too long before the year started, the COVID-19 pandemic began, and they were considering it as having reached the United States on January 13th. So I don't need to tell you the chaos and contention and suffering that this brought to the world. Sometimes because of the sickness itself, probably much more of the time because of the insanity that ensued as this started to spread throughout the world, the way that it affected economies and politics and commerce and society. It caused a lot of contention, a lot of people arguing over stupid things. And I can understand both sides of whatever issue connected with this pandemic. I can understand each side, but the contention should not have happened. And, you could still stay true to your values and what you believe without engaging in contention. And just like I say, I've said it a number of times on the channel, whenever you speak about truth, or you stand by your beliefs, it is inevitably going to probably lead to some kind of contention depending on who you're talking to. So you shouldn't not speak the truth for fear of making somebody mad, but you have to deliver it in a loving way. Or if you feel that contention is going to start unnecessary, if you're talking to somebody that's not really concerned with truth, or they just want to, argue their own points, then it's maybe just best you just don't do it, unless you're having an actual genuine debate where both parties are concerned with actually getting to the truth and they're not taking sides and it's like a competition, because that's a lot of times how different arguments go when it comes to politics or, so anyway, it was a horrible thing that happened. It affected the church. It affected missionary work. It closed all temples worldwide. Something that hasn't happened before. So this was a major event. It was huge. So I'm just starting with 2020 because I don't know, maybe there's been other things the previous years, but this was just like an easy starting point. You may think that this exercise is just kind of arbitrary. I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think so. I think that each year it kind of started in a pretty spectacular way. And this is the first year that I'm looking at, 2020, with this. And, it was so big, such a big event that it still affects us today. You're no longer required to do this or that or, whatever, but the after effects are still rippling through our world. Just like the internet, for example, when the internet came online and started becoming a household thing, even now, all these years later, I don't think that we understand the full implications of the internet because it's so big. You just have to watch through time how things unfold. And I think it's probably the same thing with COVID-19. And I understand the secret combinations. I do. I'm not interested in getting into the whole debate, and I would ask you to refrain because this is a very contentious topic. So refrain in the comments. If you are contentious, you're going to, depending on how bad it is, you're just going to be blocked, okay? But I understand the secret combination aspect of this. I understand, master plans and stuff like that. So it's just, okay, so that's how that year started out, okay? Interesting that it happened during an important year for the church, the 200th anniversary of the first vision, and how the April 2020 General Conference was a really important General Conference and a hinge point in the history of the church, according to President Nelson. Okay, so yeah, okay, 2020. Then the next year we had this. This is how the year started. And again, I'm not interested in getting into the debate or the politics or anything. Just the fact of the matter is that this happened. It doesn't matter the right or the wrong or the this or the that. It happened. And this is something that we're still dealing with today. Yeah, in fact, recent news with Trump and a ruling against him, with like the Supreme Court or I can't remember. I don't know. In Colorado, there was a court that ruled that, was it the circuit court? Right. I'm not up to snuff with like these kind of things, but in Colorado, they ruled against Trump that he can't run for president because of this that happened. So this is still affecting us today, and we don't know the end of it. We don't know where this is going to go. But it's probably not a good sign that you had this happen at the beginning of 2021. So I think the way that we can just talk about it on this channel is that this was a massive thing that happened in the political world. Okay, can we agree on that? It's a massive thing that happened in the political world, and the effects of this are still with us today and rippling throughout the nation. So when we're thinking about signs of the time, so we've already talked about a worldwide pandemic that affected so many different things. And now we have this big political event that took place at the beginning of 2021. And let's see, Control F, election. No. Okay. Election. What? Was it last year? I think it was 2022. But on, I'll just have to manually find it. Yeah, here we go. So it's interesting that we have that happen at the beginning of 2021. And then the next year, on election day, on November 8th of 2022, we had the first ever election day blood moon. And all the papers were taking note of this, and some of them were like, oh, that's probably not a good sign. And it really probably is not a good sign for the nation. For the first time in United States history, there's a blood moon on election day. There's been so much like political chaos over the last few years. There's always been chaos, but it reached a new level probably just before and at the time of President Nelson's presidency. These are signs of the times. Things are broken. They're broken. This isn't the 80s. It's not the 70s or the 60s. Like they had their own issues, but nothing like how things are right now. And we're in this age of just hyper polarization. And like I've said before, I feel like it really went into a new phase starting with in this century. It really reached a new level with 9/11, and not so much the war in Afghanistan, but when the war in Iraq began. But it kind of started with 9/11 and just how these cable news networks became almost like the cheerleaders for each side of the political spectrum. And oh, you watch Fox News. Oh, you watch CNN. Oh, you listen to this pundit. Oh gosh, for heaven's sake. And it's just like it's gotten worse since that time. And there's, oh my gosh. Oh, please, Christ, please come soon. So 2021, right? And then in 2022, we had this. We had this that happened. This is obviously from space. And there was a gigantic explosion. It was a volcanic eruption off the coast of Tonga. So again, just as a reminder, we had a pandemic for 2020. We had this that happened at the nation's capital in 2021. Then we have a gigantic explosion, but not just a gigantic explosion, okay? This truly, let me show you. Look. Okay, so I have some things to say about this one. The 2022 Tonga Hapai eruption and tsunami. In December 2021, an eruption began on Hapai, a submarine volcano in the Tongan archipelago in the southern Pacific Ocean. The eruption reached a very large and powerful climax nearly 4 weeks later on the 15th of January, 2022. Described by scientists as a quote-unquote magma hammer, the volcano at its height produced a series of 4 underwater thrusts displaced 10 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and sediment, and generated, listen to this, and generated the largest atmospheric explosion recorded by modern instrumentation. The eruption caused tsunamis in Tonga, Fiji, American Samoa, Vanuatu, or whatever, New Zealand, Japan, and in the United States, the Russian Far East, Chile, and Peru. At least 4 people were killed, some were injured, and some remain possibly missing in Tonga from tsunami waves up to 20 meters or 66 feet high. Now, an interesting thing about this one is that this led to a church-specific sign or miracle. And I have this on my spreadsheet called Signs Church-Specific. And what happened? So just a little recap in case you missed this. BBC reported this. Tonga volcano, biblical disaster shakes most Mormon nation in the world. And if you didn't know, it is. It is by percentage, not by absolute numbers, by percentage of members of the church compared to the rest of the nation. And you can find that on the church's, this article by Church News, which countries have the largest percentages of their populations as Latter-day Saints. Well, it turns out that Tonga is at the top of the list with 63.5% of their population members of the church. The only country in the world where the majority, can you believe that? The majority are members of the church. And then after that, you have Samoa, and then after that, American Samoa. Okay. So, all right. So go back to the BBC article. There's the temple there. Okay. Only the church was left standing. Zoom in. Almost all of the homes on the island were destroyed. This is talking about a small island called Atata. It's part of Tonga, but it's like a small island that's part of Tonga called Atata, okay? The tiny island of Atata, which has a population of fewer than 100 people, had been flagged by New Zealand and Tongan government authorities as one of the islands of greatest concern as it was closer to the explosion. Almost all the homes on the island were destroyed when the volcano erupted, but everyone managed to get to the church's chapel house in time, which reportedly survived. Quote, everyone on the island stayed in the church building and were safe, but every other building we understand was destroyed, except for this one in the middle of the island, Mr. Hunter said. Here's the meeting house. He said the church's properties are built as strong as we can build them because we know we're in a dangerous part of the world where a cyclone or tsunami can come through every few years or so. So our members know they can go to the nearest church when the wind is very strong to take refuge from the storms of life. In this case, both in a spiritual and physical sense. Isn't that amazing? Both physical and spiritual safety at the chapel. So anyway, that was amazing. But a few things about this eruption, okay? Daily Mail, you can find this many different articles. I just picked the first ones. Tonga underwater volcano eruption released more energy than the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear bomb ever detonated, study finds. Zoom in. they determined that the Tonga eruption was equivalent to around 61 megatons of TNT. I think that's what that stands for, megatons. By comparison, the Tsar Bomba, excuse me, the Tsar Bomba nuclear bomb released between 50 to 58 megatons. This is larger than the largest nuclear bomb. Okay, that's how big this was. Let's take a look at this again. Look at that. This is how 2022 started off. The year that President Nelson called on the church to be the people of the second coming. This is how the year started off. Okay. I don't think I had anything else from this article. No. Okay. But there's more. Live science. Now, this is the first time that I've seen this. I think this is, I don't know if this is like a more recent analysis of what happened, but this is from Live Science. First mega-tsunami on record since antiquity was triggered by Tonga volcanic eruption. That's news to me. Whenever there's like these big events, usually it takes time to analyze what happened because it was so big. I haven't seen this until now. This is dated from April, so it's not that I wasn't necessarily looking, but this is a relatively new article. First mega tsunami since antiquity. Okay. BBC, how the Tonga volcano produced the most intense lightning ever seen. And I've recently done a video about this, and when I say recently, probably within the last like 4 to 5 months. So not only the biggest explosion and mega tsunami, but also the most intense lightning ever seen. And by the way, now the one thing to keep in mind, because some people are probably like, if this is news to you, some people are probably like, well, there's been larger volcanic eruptions. And yes, that's true. But what they're saying here is that this is the largest ever recorded by modern instrumentation. Okay, so yes, there's been bigger things in the past, but modern instrumentation. So, okay, and then this is like affecting the atmosphere and potentially the weather, Fox weather. How the Tonga volcano eruption could have warmed the planet, study says. Nuku'alofa, Tonga. The January 2022 eruption of Honga Tonga Honga Hapai in the island nation of Tonga was so powerful that it may have caused the climate to warm temporarily, a study says. It produced a sonic boom that could be heard as far north as Alaska and sent a tsunami that raced across the Pacific to Japan and North and South America, according to NOAA. Just so you can see how far that is, let's go to Google Earth. And I have this as one of my events. So here's where the eruption took place. Okay, there's the volcano. And it was heard as far as Alaska. You know how far that is? It's all the way in the heck past Hawaii up here. That is a really, really long way for that sound to travel. I mean, that's like, yeah, like here's Antarctica down here. It's like even further from Antarctica. Like Alaska's further from Tonga than Antarctica. Well, that doesn't really matter. It's a long ways. It's far. Okay. Let's see. This water vapor became a potent greenhouse gas, causing a temporary warming localized to the Pacific area, Perkis said. And then there's some more than just that. This is from University of Maryland. Study shows massive eruption thinned Earth's protective ozone layer. There's a frightening picture of it. The January 2022 eruption of the Honga Tonga Honga Ha'apai volcano in the South Pacific produced a shockwave felt around the world and tsunamis around the Pacific Basin, some 1,000 miles distant. It created longer-term effects as well. Oh, just like these other things, the pandemic, the capital, changing the chemistry. and dynamics. This is like perfect. Let's take this sentence and let's apply this not only to the volcano, but to the COVID-19 pandemic and then what happened at the Capitol. Metaphorically speaking, of course. All these events created longer-term effects as well, changing the chemistry and dynamics of the, in this case, Earth's atmosphere in the year following the eruption, according to a recent study by researchers from the University of Maryland and Harvard University. Quote, the Tonga Ha'apai eruption was truly extraordinary in that it injected about 30 billion pounds of water into the normally dry stratosphere, which is just an absolutely incredible amount of water for a single event, said David Wilmoth, a project scientist at Harvard's John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences and first author of the paper. Quote, this eruption put us in uncharted territory, said Salowich, who also has appointments in the Department of Atmospheric and Oceanic and Science and the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. We've never seen in the history of satellite records this much water vapor injected into the atmosphere. How many records has this thing broken? This is a sign of the times, you guys. The Tonga Ha'apai eruption was the largest explosion ever recorded in the atmosphere using modern equipment, far surpassing the biggest atomic bomb tests or other recent volcanic eruptions. It hurled aerosols and gases deep into the stratosphere and beyond, with some material reaching the lower mesosphere, more than 30 miles above Earth's surface, altitudes never previously recorded from a volcanic eruption. Other studies found that the eruption increased water vapor in the stratosphere by 10% worldwide, with even higher concentrations in some areas of the southern hemisphere. The team found that the injection of water vapor and sulfur dioxide changed both the chemistry and the dynamics of the stratosphere. Oh my gosh. And then just a little thing here. This is just from 4 days ago. Tonga volcano eruption was fueled by 2 merging chambers that are still brimming with magma. Almost 2 years after a humongous eruption rocked Tonga's Hunga volcano in the southwest Pacific Ocean, scientists have finally mapped the huge magma plumbing system that gave birth to the record-breaking blast. And it turns out the researchers found that the blast ejected roughly 30% of the magma. I just share that because we've seen some other things with other stories where you have like a third, because you think of the book of Revelation, there's all these like thirds, a third part of this, a third part of that. So I'm just pointing that out for anyone that would appreciate it. I don't put too much into that, but a third of the magma came out during that eruption. Okay, so now let's move on from that. So we've done the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020, 2021, the Capitol, 2022, the volcano off the coast of Tonga. And now, 2023, it started in a pretty remarkable way, I feel like, symbolically speaking, because what happened was there was a large earthquake in Turkey that caused a mountain of olives in Turkey to cleave in twain. And this is significant, I believe, because this is what we expect to see at the second coming when Christ comes to the Jews in Jerusalem. This is what's going to happen. Again, I have to address, there was somebody who's like, well, this isn't anything because this isn't something that you could escape through. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Where did anything in the scriptures say that it has to be a perfectly level pathway for the Jews to escape through? And in any case, you see all these boulders. If you have people that are chasing you, they have weapons, they have guns. This is called cover. You use cover to not get hit by the bullets. And you can kind of make your way. It's not easy, but you can escape through here. You can easily do that. I don't know if you've ever like gone to like I one of my favorite places is called City of Rocks in Idaho. It's in southern Idaho. And you can do like rock climbing, but you can also just do, what do they call it? Boulder scrambling or something like that. It's been a long time. Yeah. Rock scrambling. You know, it's just like when you climb on top of like boulders and stuff like that. It's really fun, but I can't do it anymore. I'm too fat. So anyway, you can do that. You can escape through this very easily. It might be hard for elderly, but anyway, that's not the point. Here's the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. This is supposed to cleave in twain. And it's called the Mount of Olives because there's olive groves there. So what happened was, if we go to the Wikipedia article for a list of earthquakes in 2023, they have this table which lists earthquakes this year by death toll. And the one that we're talking about was the deadliest one this year. It killed, well, there's like two that kind of went together, a 7.8 and a 7.5. In between the two of them, it killed almost 60,000 people. And to put that into perspective, using Wikipedia's numbers, okay, because I can't possibly manually do this. I'm reliant on that. But my spreadsheet here goes back to 1985. It stops at 1985. So since 1985, this year, because of that earthquake, is the 5th deadliest year on record for earthquakes since 1985. Okay, so the total, if you put all the earthquakes together, we're currently at about 64,000. In fact, it's gone up since that time because there was a recent deadly earthquake in China. And I haven't updated this since that time because it, like when I made that video, it had just happened. So the death toll has gone up since that time. In fact, just really quick while I'm thinking about it. Oh yeah, it's gone up to 148. And I think when I had done the video, it was at like 80 something, I think. But it looks like it's gone up to 148. So that's the 5th deadliest earthquake this year. Anyway, so you add this all up together and it makes for a deadly year. In fact, you'd have to go back to 2010 to see a deadlier year than this year. But so that's notable by itself. But again, as far as like signs of the times go, it's probably not a good sign when you see a Mount of Olives cleave in twain. Let's go to the scripture. There's two scriptures actually. Zechariah 14, verse 4. And his feet, referring to Christ at the second coming to the Jews, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives will cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove to the north, or toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains. For the valley of the mountain shall reach unto Azal, yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. Okay? And then you can also read this in D&C 45, verses 47 to 53. And, then shall the arm of the Lord fall upon the nations. And then shall the Lord set his foot upon this mount, and it shall cleave in twain, and the earth shall tremble and reel to and fro, and the heavens also shall shake. And the Lord shall utter his voice, and all the ends of the earth shall hear it, and the nations of the earth shall mourn, and they that have laughed shall see their folly. And, okay, that's all I need to read. So, this is something that we know is going to happen in Jerusalem. And if the Lord is wanting to communicate that, look, you guys, we're winding things up here. You really need to start working on your worthiness. Get to the temple, get on the covenant path, because look, for those of you that know Bible prophecy, you know that Christ is coming to a Mount of Olives and is going to cleave in twain. Here's this for you. Please see it for what it is, and please take this seriously. Get on the covenant path. That's how I see this, and I feel like this is how everyone should see it. But not everybody does. Not everybody does, because there's always some person that wants to explain it away or minimize it. That's fine. Fine. You do that. That's fine. Just make sure you're on the covenant path. But for the rest of us, I can't believe that this happened this year. I cannot believe that there was a Mount of Olives that cleaved in twain. In fact, they even used, let's see, was it in this one? Let's see, cleave. Yeah, look. So CNN, earthquake created a deep chasm in middle of Turkish olive grove. Let's zoom in. A verdant olive grove was cleaved into two during last week's devastating earthquake in Turkey, creating a valley 984 feet long, about 300 meters, that now divides the area. Remarkable footage of the split olive grove has emerged from Turkey's southeast Altinozu district, which borders Syria, showing a jagged, sandy-colored, canyon-like chasm. The cleavage reaches over 130 feet deep, or 40 meters. Its creation is another show of the devastating power of last Monday's magnitude 7.8 quake, which killed tens of thousands of people in Syria and Turkey and destroyed entire city blocks. Irfan Aksu, who lives in the neighborhood, told Turkish news agency Demirian News Agency that when the earthquake started last Monday, it created, quote unquote, an incredible sound where he lived. It was like a battlefield when we woke up, he said. And then just a little bit more. This is on NBC News. That is just, oh my gosh, look at that. It's like a clean cut right here. Okay, Tenefan, Turkey. An olive grove split in two, separated by an enormous canyon 1.5 miles long, in a lasting statement to the sheer power of the deadly earthquakes that devastated large swaths of Turkey and Syria. Drone video released Wednesday showed how the grove in the small town of Tenefan in rural eastern Turkey is now bisected by a valley that wasn't there just days ago. The town the town is near the East Anatolian fault line that caused last week's earthquakes. Okay, I don't even know why I'm reading. There's nothing new here. Sorry. Sometimes I'm not the best always at organizing my stuff. It's fine. So here's another picture of it. It's just, I don't know. It's mind-blowing. I just can't believe that. I don't need to read that stuff either. Okay. And then I don't need to read that. So let's go to Google Earth really quick. Let's go to the Middle East. And I have this on my Google Earth too. So not only the fact that it happened, but the fact that it was in the Middle East and close to Turkey. Okay. Or sorry, close to Israel. Israel's right here. Here's where the Mount of Olives in Turkey split into two. It'd be one thing if this happened like in India or China or Russia or whatever, South America, Africa. No, it happened. If we zoom out, here's Israel, and here's where this happened. And you look at the rest of the world, all the other places that it could have potentially happened. No, it happened super duper close to Israel. Now I realize I don't know, like I don't have a map of all the olive groves throughout the world. Like, there's only certain areas obviously where you can grow olives, but it doesn't matter. It's really close to Israel. I wouldn't be surprised if many other people thought about this as they saw these news stories, both Christians and Jews. I don't know what the Muslims believe. They do believe Christ is coming back. Of course, they view him as a prophet, but that he's going to come back for a second time. I don't know if they believe about the thing about the Mount of Olives being cleaved in twain, but Christians and Jews do. I'm sure we're not the only ones that made this connection. And I think it would be unwise for us to forget that this just happened earlier this year. So putting all this together, it's like since 2020, there have been like these really big events that have taken place that are still affecting us today. Maybe not so much the earthquake in Turkey. I mean, it's certainly affecting them still in Turkey. Worldwide, maybe not so much, but the pandemic, yes. The Capitol event, yes. This, yes. It seems that it's affecting the atmosphere, and who knows the full implications. There's one commenter that said that this may be why the flooding has been so bad this year, like all the storms that have dumped all this rain in all these places and caused the very severe flash flooding. I haven't been able to find anything to confirm that, but that'd be interesting if that's the case. But it seems like probably in some ways at least, this is still affecting us today. And then you have this, I don't know what to say. Just let me know what you think in the comments below. I think it'd be very unwise when something like this happens to ignore it. And it makes me wonder, what's going to happen this next year? What's going to be the first big thing that happens this next year? Again, pandemic, riot, or political things, volcano, earthquake. What's it going to be for 2024? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it. And I'll talk to you guys later.